suck. We're going to open BINC TV that week with a firm, confirmed Boris sucks.
That's what I get for giving someone an opportunity to run a show here.
So apparently,
I get the button past 30 seconds before it starts.
Yeah, so apparently I'm the new producer of BINC TV, which also in Boris's little wonderland means that I'm now the host and he has no responsibility other than
Winter Wonderland.
Winter Wonderland. That is my favorite time of the year whenever they release Sam Adams' Winter Lager. But
and we have a fourth visitor today, Sam Adams.
Sam will be joining us, which really, in my opinion, which of the 4 Sam Adams seasonal beers is the best could easily be a topic of BINC TV. Write that down. That being said, we thought this week we would talk about Jerry Yang stepping down from, well, hey, if I'm apparently the host and the producer, that makes you pretty much the producer's assistant. So get a notepad and take notes.
Pretty sure producer's assistant, right? At the producer.
I'm the bodyguard.
I like it. Okay, now that we're completely and totally off track, this week we thought we'd talk a little bit about Jerry Yang stepping down from Yahoo. It's kind of, I don't know, it's the big buzz.
I think it is.
Certainly not anything I feel unsurprising, but nonetheless, it's still the big buzz in the tech community this week. I got a few ideas talking about, we'll talk a little bit about Jerry stepping down. What does that generally mean for Yahoo? Good thing, bad thing. There are a few varying opinions. I think, and by and large, it's pretty much the same. Talk a little bit about what a CEO really can mean to a big company like that. Like for all of us, myself included, who's never worked for a big organization. Like I'm used to a guy like you who is a CEO, can be very hands-on, very involved in day-to-day operations. What really, at the end of the day, can a CEO do to save a sinking ship, which I think arguably Yahoo already was before he ever came on board?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think a lot of people are giving Jerry a ton of flack. The stuff that he messed up is huge, it's monumental, it's significant, it costs billions of dollars to Yahoo. But you got to remember, the guy did step in as interim CEO after the failure of Terry Semel, right? So it was Jerry Yang that was the CEO, then Terry Semel was brought in to run the show.
I don't think Jerry Yang was ever actually the CEO.
Jerry Yang was a co-founder.
He was co-founder.
He was a co-founder, kind of like a chief visionary, things along the line. I was in college whenever that happened.
I figure out maybe we could look it up.
But
CEO before Terry Semel.
But we were talking about, definitely Yahoo was already on its way down, but what things could he have done? And I think a great example of a company that was on its way down that was saved by a CEO is Steve Jobs. Look, Apple was a dying company, let's face it. It had a very small, not even cult following. It had a very small kind of following, and now, it really become a cult icon.
It had a cult following back in the Mac days, back in the Apple IIe days.
But by the time Steve Jobs came back to Apple,
it was dead.
Yeah. Right? And he's completely resurrected it. So obviously a CEO in that size of an organization can have an impact. Where maybe did Jerry Yang miss the boat? And then just in general, I think we thought we'd kind of wrap things up by talking about maybe a little bit about how we conduct the search and some of the places that we at least go about looking for people who could possibly resurrect a company like this.
Yeah.
So lots of topics, but in general, good thing, bad thing, Jerry Yang out as CEO at Yahoo.
Good thing.
Because?
Because he did nothing but help contribute to the downfall of Yahoo. And not only did he do that, he smiled and laughed and waved and was ignorant the whole entire time. Saying that Yahoo is a great company, we're doing great things, while they're plummeting.
Yeah, one of the toughest things for me to stomach through the entire Jerry Yang experience was it was a couple of weeks before he resigned, and that was talking about how Yahoo had really had, and I believe his term was an amazing year or something along those lines, and I was just thinking, to the shareholders, to the employees who have hemorrhaged their leadership, who have hemorrhaged their friends off, who have been laid off, an amazing year seems like a little bit of a slap in the face almost, even for him to be wow, this has been an amazing year for us.
We laid off 10,000 people, our stock lost, 50% of what it was worth?
More than that.
Yeah, way more.
Part of that you have to attribute to just the overall kind of downfall of the tech market. Had that not fallen, they'd probably still be hovering in the mid-20s. But whatever, that aside, a lot of people are giving Jerry Yang a ton of flack. I 100% agree that him moving out is the right decision for Yahoo, but I don't even know that I necessarily blame him for all the troubles that they're experiencing. You got to think, someone gave him the confidence to be interim CEO after Terry Semel failed, right? Who did that? The board did that, the shareholders did that, the other executives did that. I don't know. I don't know what gave Jerry Yang I don't know what qualified Jerry Yang to be the interim CEO or the CEO in the eyes of the world in the first place.
Well, ultimately, I think for me and for a lot of people, the biggest issue with Jerry was that he didn't go through with the Microsoft deal. If he had knowing, obviously everybody knew the market was heading towards a bad place, but Yahoo would be worth 350% what it's worth right now. If he would have just said yes It was a fucking fair deal. A lot of people said it was, but
I don't know the nuance of it, but was it if he said yes, then it would have been yes, versus if him saying no, and now it's a no? I mean, was it really? Did he really hold that much power as the interim CEO of the company?
My feeling is yes, and I'll say, like, I think that Jerry Yang came into a bad place, but I do put the downfall of the share price, the downfall of the company over the last year directly on his shoulders. And I have to admit, this was not an original idea on my part, but in reading around, one of the best points that I made, and I completely side with this, is that the reason it's Jerry Yang's fault is he took it personally. As the CEO of the company, he couldn't separate himself from being the founder of the company and being the CEO of the company. And whenever that company went public, it was no longer his company. The New York Times made a great point that at that point it became the shareholders' company. And he was, whenever he came back, he was never able to separate himself from that. And he, in his actions and in what he did, from the mindset of, this is my company, I do 100% put the blame on where Yahoo is at today as compared to where it was at whenever he came in the door, squarely on his shoulders.
Yeah, I agree with you. The only kind of thing that I have trouble with is Jerry Yang didn't hire himself in as the CEO of Yahoo. The board elected him as the CEO of the company. The board elected him as CEO of the company, knowing that he had trouble separating his connection to the company versus the shareholders' true ownership of the company.
Yeah,
they put him in this place.
You
They put him
can't
in a
force
position to
somebody
fail.
to be CEO. He had to accept him being nominated as the CEO as well.
Well, yeah, fine. He had to accept, but they had to offer it.
But like,
it was someone else's decision to.
From your point, you're saying why in God's name was a guy who never ran a major multinational company, given what was obviously a company that was in dire straits, that needed a new vision, that needed a new leader. They needed their Steve Jobs.
Yeah.
And I think maybe, and I'm making some assumptions here, but the fact that Steve had been brought back to Apple, had done such amazing things, you wonder if that doesn't have something to do with it. If Yahoo's board didn't go, hey, I wonder if we can do this also.
Maybe, yeah.
They say, let's bring back that, let's bring back that initial spirit. Let's bring back kind of that founding mentality, that gung-ho from the beginning. And I think that, in kind of riding the coattails of Apple, I mean, I don't think anybody can argue that it soundly blew up directly in their face.
And maybe Yahoo's doing fine from a core we love Yahoo perspective, right? Bleed purple and yellow or whatever, but it's from like the actual being able to run from a corporate perspective that they failed, which I mean he clearly was unqualified to be doing so in the first place. So nonetheless, probably good that it's not even probably, it is 100% good that he's moving on.
There has to be somebody who can have a better vision for Yahoo and where they can go. I don't 110% know, and you said that selling out to Microsoft was his big blunder. Maybe by the time that Microsoft made their bid, at that point it may have been the best thing. I don't know that it always would have been the best thing for Yahoo to have sold out to Microsoft. I think that at the point at which Microsoft made their $33 a share offer, I think it was pretty obvious that was as good from a shareholder perspective as it was going to be. But you really look out, I mean, there were several blunders over the course of the year. I kind of made a list of my biggest ones. As you can see, it's a pretty significant list here. But I think one of my biggest problems, as far as like the way he managed it, was twofold. One obviously was the managing it as his company, not taking kind of that founder's perspective. But the other thing was, where was the leadership? Where was he at whenever the company started just shedding talent? I mean, talent was rolling off that company like water off a duck's back.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they were leaving there quicker than, they had, I was always amazed that they needed layoffs. The rate they were losing senior management and the rate they were losing individual contributors. Yeah, you had your diehard Yahoo, I love this place guys. But by and large, anybody who wasn't tunnel vision was at a minimum looking outside. Where was the corporate leadership to start to, that is, in my opinion, where a CEO can make an impact.
Again, to
play that troop rallier.
Play a little bit of a devil's advocate. That may not have been a complete accident. They saved millions and millions of dollars in severance packages and retention packages that they probably didn't want to pay out in the first place, knowing that they were too bloated from a corporate perspective.
And how many millions and billions of dollars did they lose in innovation by even the people who were staying having horrible morale?
Where were the biggest ones that spew the line that a great candidate is like more cost efficient than
worth more than 1,000 good ones?
Yeah.
But who's to say that the people that were leaving were great? I mean, Yahoo always had the reputation of having like middle management up to Wahoo. Middle management reporting to middle management, reporting to middle management, all the while having no ownership whatsoever over the work that they do. it's known they have that reputation in the marketplace.
I think you're right to some extent. Like, they weren't trying to save a lot of the hemorrhaging that they were going through, but in my opinion, that's a horrible way to go about doing those kinds of things, because let's face it, the one thing that Yahoo was really lacking in really taking that next step, the one thing that Steve Jobs did at Apple, the one thing that Yahoo never did to vault itself past that horrible place it had gotten to mentally, was innovation. They didn't come out with that next great step. They couldn't come out with that next great product, and it's really what kept them, I think, from being able to do that. And whenever you have a talent pool who's totally unmotivated, you're not going to make that next step.
Yeah.
Back with